We're going to take a break from the Kirkland trial to talk to Colin Kalmbacher. He's a Law&Crime editor. We can't be live in the Paul Manafort trial because it's in federal court, but we've got the next best thing. Colin, thank you so much for joining us. What's going on
day
4?
Day 4, we are speaking with the South African-born accountant, J. Philip Aliff, who is going through the niceties of federal tax forms, all the numbers that no one hopefully ever has to deal with, and basically we're still stuck there. Everybody's expecting Rick Gates will be testifying later after lunch. We just broke for lunch a little bit early, and we're still going to hear a cross-examination of Mr. Aliff, hopefully Mr. Gates after that.
All right, Colin, I've been reading your coverage of the trial on lawandcrime.com. For our viewers who want more information on the case, definitely check out Colin's pieces there. You've been talking a lot about how Judge T.S. Ellis has not been very patient with any shenanigans on either side of the trial. What's been going on today in terms of that and how the judge has been getting along with the attorneys on either side?
Yeah, today there haven't been quite as many laugh lines, or certainly no finger wagging, no intonations with great pathos that this is America, we don't put people on trial for having ostrich suits and things of that sort. There was an initial conference issue, however, where the prosecution was essentially trying to forbid the defense from mentioning any sort of reference to a civil audit. I guess the point here being that the IRS didn't initiate any of this stuff against any of these charges or anything, any of the inquiries into Mr. Manafort or any of his activities. And so the implication the prosecution is arguing is that that would be prejudicial. Basically, the judge kind of circumscribed what kind of questions could be asked, but essentially shot down the prosecution's argument that you couldn't reference audits whatsoever. So not an awful lot of fireworks, but I would just note that I guess Judge Ellis kind of has a reputation for being a little bit more strenuous with the party that appears to be doing better. And so, most of his fire has been unloaded on the prosecution. So I would say that kind of augurs well for them and, bad for Manafort.
And how does the jury appear to be receiving the testimony that's been going on? Do they seem, some of this probably is maybe a little bit dry to them, but do you think the prosecution has been effective so far?
I would say, especially today, not any type of recognition or any kind of hints from any faces whatsoever. On day 2, there was a juror. I'm not sure I'm allowed to identify them by their number.
No.
But there was one juror. I've got the number for after the fact. When FBI Special Agent Matthew McCusker was on the stand, this juror seemed fairly askance, fairly suspicious, or just a little, I don't know, maybe the guy just doesn't like FBI agents, maybe he had a bad run-in with a cop that he remembers. But McCusker was asked how the FBI came into possession of the keys to Manafort's apartment and garage in Alexandria. The FBI agent had no idea. This juror didn't seem to take it well. Later on, when Judge Ellis kind of made a sarcastic comment to or about Agent McCusker, the same juror laughed out loud, and a little bit of sustained laughter. Sorry for all this extra color about the laughs. But yeah, that's really all I could tell so far. Was one guy was kind of like not the biggest fan of an FBI agent. But what does that particularly mean for the case going forward? Probably nothing at all.
All right. Now, you said that Rick Gates, who was a co-defendant in this case, and he took a plea with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office. There had been some speculation as to whether or not he was going to take the stand in this case. You're telling us that he is expected to in the near future. What are your thoughts about what that's going to do for the prosecution and how the defense may be able to use that to their advantage?
Well, for the prosecution, it's going to, I think, make a lot of this really dry, going through all the documents, all the vendors, all the tax forms, all the invoices, whether they were faked, forged, or real. It'll probably kind of clarify a lot of that information, because I would imagine that Gates would testify which a few emails and documents have suggested that these misrepresentations, whether it be to accountants, bookkeepers, or the government in any shape or form, speaking of the government broadly, so the IRS, other entities, was on behalf of Manafort, and that he was probably directed to do so, or at least there was some sort of an implicit understanding. My best guess. As for the defense, I am
Colin, I'm sorry, we have to interrupt you. Colin and Ron, thank you so much for your coverage of the Manafort trial. Hope to have more later. We have to go to a break, but stick with us.